there's so much tech, right? We have laser lipo, we have suction assisted, we have power assisted, we got Vaser, we got Renuvion. Whatever is in that equation, it is never any better than the person who is wielding it, how much experience they have, and how much they care. Now, I feel like thighs, I don't think we have like the right answer for that. I think that we have so many things dialed in for breasts and so many things dialed in for tummy. The arms, you get good results. But I feel like as you continue to go down the line of things that we feel like are truly, truly effective surgeries, I feel like the thighs are pretty far down. And there was actually an article that came out not that long ago looking at like the highest complication rates in plastic surgery. And the top one was adding, it was keratopigmentation, which is, changing the color of your eyes. Skip on that because the complication rate's super high. But when you look at that top 10 list, like I think it was number 3 was thigh-plasty, just very high complication rate from poor scarring to poor contour. But, you talk to people, especially when they have a lot of volume and they have really lax skin, you can pull on that skin with your hands like all day to see how much better it's going to look on the inner thigh. But it translates absolutely nothing to the far side because everything is so tight and connected down versus the back and the tummy and the breast where you pull in one place, it like smooths the entire thing out, which makes it so incredibly difficult. And I'm sure there's some super genius out there who does nothing but thigh plasties all day, every day, who has it like really dialed in. I don't know who's the person for that, but we really need somebody out there to like come up with some sort of new magic for the thighs, because the thighs is just it's a tough thing. And I always prepare patients, we've done their breasts, we've done their tummies, we've done the neck, we've done the arms. They're like, okay, now I want to do the thighs. I'm like, that's fine. Let's just make sure that we understand what our goals are, what our capabilities are going to be, because it will be the least satisfying of all the surgeries that you have had. I mean, there's other ones that are tougher, but I feel like that one is just tough to enact a real global significant change that gets them to where they really want to be. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just bad at thigh plasties. I don't know.
No, but I mean, I think you bring up a good point. Like it's complex and there's issues because it's not even just the loose skin and the stubborn fat. There's, cellulite, there's dimpling that can occur kind of all over. I mean, you can be mostly posterior and posterior lateral thigh, but you can get all on the front of the thighs too. And so even if you're tightening the skin, you're going to have, these dermal puckerings, these dimples, these cellulite areas that you have to treat in a different way. And like I said, the skin quality, if you look at the skin on the inner thigh compared to like the outer thigh, the skin feels different in terms of thickness. So you have these like differences in tissue thickness and tissue quality and dimpling and, like you said, fat retention. And the fat's sometimes thicker on the outer thigh than the inner thigh, and you're like, oh my gosh, got contour problems. Like it is it could be a big black hole if you start going down it in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And it's also not even that, but with age, the descent, like the actual dropping of the front portion of the thighs. And I've had a couple of patients who come in who are very fit, not overweight, have never had weight issues, and they've got, a fold of skin sitting above the knees. And they're like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? Because when they pull up on the skin, they're pulling up, 2 centimeters, couple of inches of skin to really unfurl all of that. And I mean, you can treat thighs with Renuvion, but I don't think you get that significant of a vertical pull from that. It's more helpful in the inner thighs when you're doing liposuction, but I feel like that's a tough thing as well. And I've seen people try to address it with threads, with like PDO threads. Have you seen this before? People try to do PDO threads at the front of the thigh.
It makes sense. Taking a barb, and try to just grab everything and pull it up.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily just a redistribution is going to be effective, because it really seems to be of significant excess. But unless you're going to put a scar on the front of the thigh to like lift that whole thing up, that's not something you're going to see a significant change for. It's just tough. Thighs are tough. Who's the thigh expert out there? We should get them on the podcast. Who is the thigh person? Let us know what the future of thighs is going to be. Take us into the future, 2025 and beyond.
2025
Into
thighs.
the future of thighs. Let's make thighs the new thing.
It'll trend.
It's like we go from Whoville knows in 2024 to I don't know who's that. Is it still Barbie's thighs? I'm not sure who's gonna.
Who's got the model thighs? I don't know.
Whose thighs are we aiming for? Although Barbie is what, she's supposedly like 7 feet tall or something. When you look at her proportions, I think she's like super.
Yeah, she's gonna have
abnormally tall.
severe hang of that skin when she gets older. It's a lot of skin to hang.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a tough one. I feel like at some point, the minimally invasive technology, Renuvion, Vaser, as we continue to see iterations moving towards the future, these areas that are not really good candidates for a lot of the excisional procedures that we have, we're going to start to see them to be much more effective, so a much more appropriate case, or things that we can really do for things where, like, when somebody comes with that problem, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure that we really have something that's really going to crack this whole thing from start to finish, instead of having to tell them like what we can do and what we can't do to prepare them for what the future will bring. I feel like at some point the tech's going to get there where we're like, this is something we can knock out of the park. I finally have something in my hand that's going to get it taken care of. And I think that this is one of the things that I talk about with all these minimally invasive things. There's so much tech, right? We have laser lipo, we have suction assisted, we have power assisted, we got Vaser, we got Renuvion. Whatever is in that equation, it is never any better than the person who is wielding it, how much experience they have and how much they care, because they have to have both of those things. Because there's some people who do a ton of liposuction and they're not interested in giving you like a super stellar result. Like, that's not the business that they're running. They're just trying to like pound through it. And I see a ton of like horrific liposuction. I'm sure you see it as well. And when you see some of these patients, you're like, well, they have created like a near unfixable issue. I can't just touch it up with lipo, because everybody's like, well, I had bad lipo, so if you could just do really good lipo and make this better, I'm like, that's not going to fly. We always have to do something more significant to address it. But if people don't have experience and they don't really care about what your result's going to look like, you're not going to have a super stellar result. And I think that when you're doing liposuction, when I was in residency, when you're watching people wave a magic cannula to like have fat removed, you're like, well, that looks straightforward, right? That doesn't look like a difficult procedure, but there is so much finesse that goes into it. And the fact that when you're doing it, people are like, oh, it's like sculpting. I'm like, it is not like sculpting, right? Because if it's sculpting, if I have like a block of marble and I'm just going to chisel out David, when I'm done, it's going to look like David, right? It's like, I know when I'm done, because it's like, oh, this looks great. We're all done with it. But with lipo, everything is swollen, right? Everything's blown up. Everything's distorted.
David didn't swell.
Yeah. So it's like trying to sculpt David, but David is covered with like a sheet. So you can't actually see what you're up to. It's like you're feeling with your hands and you're pinching, you're looking at things, but you don't really know until you like pull the sheet away. And that's really what it comes down to. And when people start to understand that, you're like, hey, you're not seeing it in real time, you can understand how incredibly difficult that process is to get you what you really want. The tech is helpful, but the person who's doing it has to be good at what they're up to.